Well, as I remember, I was sitting on my bed, which is downstairs, and I think I was watching The Talk. And I looked out my window, and lo and behold, there was a man coming over the fence, the back fence. And yeah, at first it was surreal. I watch a lot of television. I thought this isn't really happening. But as he approached my window, he could see me inside. And he had a gun in his hand, and he was pointing it at me outside when he was looking in my window. And I remember I said to the people here, I said, I screamed, but I didn't scream. It was a really guttural, oh my God. It was, I don't think anyone hasn't been in that situation can imagine. So before he broke into my room, I ran out of the room and went around the corner onto a stairwell. And I hid there thinking very smartly that he was going to see the main stairway and go up the stairway, but he didn't do that. He came right around the corner and pointed that gun right in my face. And I just said to him, I said, please don't kill me. And I don't remember what he said, but he said, let's go sit down. So I took him back to my room. And I sat down, and I never smoke in this house. And I said to him, do you mind if I have a cigarette? I thought this is an opportunity to smoke in the house, and it's okay. A man's got a gun on me, and I can smoke. So he presented he wasn't overly agitated. I could see that he wasn't jumpy, but he was very delusional. He said to me, I'm on the run. He said, the police are after me, and there are drones above that are watching me. He said, if you go out tonight and look up, you're going to see the drones. And I immediately just decided, I'm just going to go with him. And I said, I've heard about these drones, and I believe you. And he said, a lot of people don't know about them, but if you go out tonight, you're going to see them. And I said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I did introduce myself to him. He did not want to share his name, and I certainly didn't want to pursue that. So he looked very tired, and he kept stopping in our conversation saying, oh, I just need to think, I just need to think. And I just would be very quiet. And he said that he had been up the street smoking meth last night, or the night before last. And I assumed that some incident had happened that had made him run. So he'd been running since the night before, and he was very tired. And he asked me if I had a car, and I said, there's no car here. I don't have a car. He said, well, I'm just going to have to take you hostage then, and we'll take a taxi. And I said, well, you know what? I have a little cash, and why don't I call you a cab? And you can get away. And he said, well, the police will know who I am because they're all watching me. And I said, well, you know what? I can give you a different hat, and I'll take your coat and you take mine, and I'll bet you can get out of the neighborhood. So we chatted for a while, and then he decided he wanted to come upstairs. And when we got up here, he asked me to close the blinds. And he kept looking out, and I said to him, I said, very sincerely, I said, I promise you, I know this street very well. And I said, there's nothing going on out there. There's no car out there that doesn't look familiar to me. And he looked across the street at a car, and he said, no, there's a guy in there. He just said, there's a man in that car, and he's watching me. So I thought, well, he's on meth. He's got visual hallucinations, and that I believe that's very common with meth. And so again, I just didn't argue with him. And so when we were upstairs, I offered him a glass of water, and he was very thirsty, so I gave him a glass of water, and he went and stood behind the refrigerator. And then when he wanted to come out of the kitchen, it was a really funny thing that happened. He decided he'd crawl on the floor, and he had the glass of water in his hand, and he's crawling across the floor, and he's apologizing about spilling water. And I just looked at him and I said, that's the least of my problems right now. I don't care if you're spilling water on my floor. So he told me about his past, a little bit about how he used to work in asbestos and what do you call that, insulation, fiberglass insulation. And he said, you know, he said, I've got a lot of health problems from that. And he said, you know, where I used to work, when the inspectors came, our bosses told us to hide it so that it wasn't, so what they had cleaned up wasn't seen. And I understand about mesothelioma and about how terrible it was and how it was hidden from the public for a long, long time. And I said, I really understand that. That's really awful that that had to happen to you. I can't remember all the conversation, but he obviously gave up the idea of taking me hostage. Now, all the time he has the gun out. He's got the gun. But I could see he wasn't really waving it around anymore. He wasn't fixated on me like I was a threat. I think we'd established kind of a relationship where I was non-threatening. And I said this to the police yesterday. I went to nursing school, and the only thing I did really well in was psychology, and especially dealing with mentally ill people who were endangering your life, and how to present non-threatening behaviors. So I didn't cross my arms, I didn't put my hand on my hip, I was just very engaged and was very respectful of what he was telling me. And I said to him, I said, you know, I think this is just going to end really badly for you. I said, you know, you have a gun. And you said you've been running for a year. And I said, you look exhausted. I said, if you go out the door, we know what's going on at the moment. We know that if you go out the door and I call the police are going to come and shoot you down because you have a weapon. And aside